Welcome into the Off-Brand Sports Podcast. Today we're going to be doing a couple of deep dives on the Carolina Hurricanes and the Denver Nuggets. For the next few episodes, actually, we'll do a deep dive on a playoff team from the NHL and a playoff team from the NBA. But before we talk about that, we've got some other sports news. Starting off, I think we have some NASCAR things to talk about. Marshall, why don't you go ahead and start us off here?
So it's circulating in the news right now. Something that probably most people that are listening to the podcast has heard about. But Bubba Wallace found a noose inside his racing garage. This is in response to all the stuff that NASCAR has been doing, banning the Confederate flags. I think this is completely uncalled for, and I don't know what your guys' take on it, but that's probably the most disgraceful thing that you can do to a person of color.
It's despicable.
Yeah. He's kind of a game changer in the whole NASCAR world.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely despicable.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Just the concept of it, just who can get into that garage other than some person with clearance?
Exactly.
That's just freaky, because, now there could be just foul play against Bubba Wallace. Like, nothing's off the table now. That's a pretty aggressive...
Yeah, it sets a precedent for interesting things in the future. For sure.
Yeah. I also saw that Bubba himself said that this isn't going to faze him. He's not backing down, which, I really admire a guy who's really been one of... NASCAR's kind of very much a kind of conservative as sports go, so some of their stances, he's really been that progressive voice for NASCAR, and I feel like he's done a lot of good for that community, and I admire the fact that he isn't backing down because of this,
Yeah, and
adding
adding
on
on
to
to
stand-up guy.
And adding on to the positives about this, all the NASCAR players coming together to push his car was a great scene to watch. It was very inspiring, and the photos
absolutely.
of Bubba afterwards were, I guess you could say, breathtaking in a sense. Him crying was very, it was emotional.
It's emotional. Yeah, It is very emotional. Guys, like Billy had said, yes, this is typically conservative, looked as a conservative sport. However, Billy and I were talking about this off script. I do feel like that NASCAR is taking the front run, or the precedent on how major sports should be combating this type of stuff.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
So, and just the fact that all of the NASCAR drivers have gathered around him, they all have his back, and I feel like most of the country right now is rooting for this guy to do well in every single race.
Yeah, absolutely. And, piggybacking off what you were saying, Marshall, I think NASCAR has set an excellent example of how to do this right, because it's not NASCAR themselves that have had some of these issues, especially with racial relations in the past. It's the fan base. And how do you change a fan base? You have a big voice like NASCAR themselves step up and say, hey, what's going on here is wrong. Bringing these Confederate flags, this is wrong. And NASCAR is doing, in my opinion, a really good job of trying to make changes and hoping that the changes they make kind of trickle through their fan base.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing is the whole banning of the flags thing has kind of caught a lot of NASCAR fans, off guard. They've been flying their flags outside of all the racetracks, and someone literally took a prop plane and flew a Confederate flag behind it yesterday. Mm-hmm. In my opinion, dude, it's like the Confederate flag. Anyone that kind of stands behind it, I know I'm not trying to get too political, but it just does not make sense to me. It's like, dude, you guys lost.
Yeah.
It just think about
the
how
Confederacy lasted 4 years. How are you
Yeah.
holding on to that 4 years of history when there's 200 years of
exactly and
American history, and then why are you flying a flag that's not the American flag? And these are the same people that get offended if someone disrespects the American flag and they're literally flying a different flag in the same time. So it's kind of, I agree with Marshall. It's kind of, I don't really understand. I'm sure everyone has their beliefs.
Right, no, totally. They definitely do. And, just to piggyback on that, I just want to say, While I don't totally agree necessarily with banning, symbols and flags and things like that, I do agree that it just doesn't make sense as this flag, why people are standing behind it at this point in America. It just doesn't make sense.
I mean, yeah, dude, it's
Yeah.
like if you're an American, the Civil War was a key part in American history. And the fact that you're flying a flag out of, the Confederacy lost that battle, and yet still people think that because they're flying the Confederate flag, you're more American than the next person. It
Right.
just does not make sense
This is
to
where
me.
it kind of takes the political turn, where people can say, "What if you're flying that flag, you believe in a certain kind of ideology?" And I understand where definitely. I mean, I don't want to make this a political chat, but
No, but at the same time, it's
we
like
try and stay a little bit away from politics here, but there's definitely some crossover.
I mean,
We'll try and
this is taking
yeah,
a turn
Marshall,
into
go ahead, Sid.
this is taking a turn into sports, though. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
I feel like this is a long time coming. The Confederate flag is something that a lot of people just fly it because, like Karim was saying, they believe in some sort of ideology, which that is 100% not the case. Just think about how it makes other people feel, especially people in, like, dude, the South is full of people of color. And yet the Mississippi state flag still has the Confederate flag inside of it.
I mean the Georgia flag. All these flags have just allusions to the Confederacy, and I don't know, man. I'm hard pressed to find anybody to convince me why.
They don't.
Yeah,
They don't
there's no
have a
logic
reason.
behind it. Yeah,
They don't have a reason other than thinking that they're more American than the next. Where really, if they were more American than the next person, they would be in favor of banning the flag. So that's all I'm going to say about the Confederate flag.
Yeah.
Actually, one more
we got
thing.
into a little bit of a tangent there. Okay,
One
more
more
thing. and we'll
thing.
move on here.
The SEC commissioner
Yeah.
was threatening that they will not play any games in Mississippi until the flag gets changed. Whether or not that actually gets passed is totally up to the SEC and the citizens of Mississippi and all that. I feel like that's
I think the SEC declared it, and then it's up to Mississippi. I mean, what SEC? It's the SEC championship game, right? That would
Just-
be played there, or
well,
any SEC conference game.
Ole Miss, Mississippi State, all of that stuff would be very impacted. But there has been traction on Mississippi actually changing the state flag for a long time now, and I feel like with all this commotion that's been going on, they're kind of taking the necessary steps to get that actually in place. But yeah,
yeah.
That's the crazy
Awesome.
thing is that a lot of one last point.
No worries.
It's just like you finally see some change, especially in the SEC, where I mean it's not like really progressive change. Like they're not making a huge statement, but like NASCAR and the SEC right here are two entities that I would not expect to be on the front running of being a progressive sports
Absolutely.
institution, where like the NFL or like other conferences in college football, NBA, where a majority of these players are people of color, and they're
Yeah.
kind of just sitting back on their hands, just like not really saying anything. There's a lot of dispute in the NBA. I'm sure we'll talk about that later, just about like why are we playing? Why are we kind of being the guinea pigs for the rest of America right now? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. Literally the last two entities I would expect to be on the front of this change would be the SEC and NASCAR, but there.
no, I agree with what you're saying. But yeah, let's try to not rile up so many people. So and
Yeah,
I just feel like it was
a
a-
little bit of a tangent there.
I feel like it was an
But
important
let's,
topic to
move
talk
on.
about, though. So
Yeah, definitely. So, any other sports news that you guys wanted to discuss this week?
I mean, we could touch on the MLB and the MLBPA.
I mean,
In
there is currently a live basketball game going on right now, so I guess that's a plus.
Who
Yeah.
the hell's playing?
Yeah, that's the Gonzaga Lions and the Flying Leopards.
Hell yeah. Who's winning?
Oh,
It's
Is it
right now.
NBA?
It's
Leopards.
it's a tie going into the third, so it's a barn burner. It's a barn burner.
yeah.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
There's
So-
something I wanted to touch
Yeah,
on,
Marshall,
though.
what do you want to say about the MLB?
So just the MLB and the MLBPA, they're still trying to figure out the kinks. But in my opinion, with this whole dispute, the MLB is losing a lot of traction because they could have been the first major sports team to come back and actually put on live games. I know we're all itching for live sports other than golf and NASCAR, just some sort of team sport that we could, gather around and watch. And MLB would be the only like team sport, major team sport in America that would have been doing that. But now instead, they're getting into huge contract disputes, and in my opinion, I just don't necessarily know what the MLB is doing. I don't know if you guys have any further comments on that, but
Yeah, I just think they need to kind of, like you said, they had a chance to be the first sport back, which would be huge. Whoever the first sport back is going to get a big influx of new fans that are just craving a sport, and the MLB has really, it looks like they're going to squander that opportunity just because they can't get it together and get a deal done.
I heard today that the median MLB fan was 50 years old.
Oh,
Dude,
wow.
I could believe that. Dude,
Yeah,
I
Makes
maybe
sense.
watch 2 MLB games a year.
I mean, personally, I do like the
Yeah.
MLB a lot. Not as much as the other 3 major sports, but still, if there was MLB going on right now, I would go out of my way to watch it. Just like I'm going out of my way to watch golf.
Yeah, fair enough. Like, I never watched the MLB, but if it's the first sport back, you can bet I'll be watching it.
Yeah.
Right.
But-
I mean, it's a dispute over money, isn't it? Just like they can't put people in stands if they do open and they don't want to pay their players.
The
If we're not
owners,
gonna
How
get
many
the
games
income.
they're going to play, so how much of the player's salary should they be getting for how many games they're playing. So a lot of kind of money things to work out between them, which pretty much every sport is going to run into this issue. Even the NHL is working on some CBA stuff that they are going to have to get done before they can start as well. But it'll be interesting to see how some of those play out. Just figure out what the players are going to be paid really in every sport.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and transition into our bet segment here. So kind of interesting this week. We already placed these bets. We were planning on recording yesterday. We ran into some internet issues that kind of didn't work that out. So now a lot of these bets have already been resolved. But we're going to talk about them anyway. I started it off. I picked Man U to score 3+ goals.
Man City,
versus Burnley.
Man City.
And they did. This is our first win of this segment, which just goes to show you shouldn't bet on sports you don't know about, which we've been doing since nothing is back. Marshall and Zach. Marshall, you start. What was your bet this week?
So I was taking the odds boost on any driver to win in the NASCAR, whatever's going on. There's not a whole lot to be betting on, so once sports come back, then I'll maybe take some more bets that I'm actually more comfortable doing. But for now, I do like the odds boost. And it was pretty much you bet $5 on any NASCAR racer to win, and if they finish in the top 5, you get your money back. I bet $5 on Denny Hamlin. I think it was plus. I think it was like 1,100.
It was 1,000. I think it was an even 1,000.
Okay, it was an even 1,000. And he did not end up finishing very well. So, unfortunately, that's what happened. But that's what you get when you're betting on sports that you don't necessarily know too much about. So,
Yeah. And the boost on Marshall's was an insurance bet. So he actually bet $5 on Hamlin. He gets that $5 back. The way we're going to do that is whatever bet he puts next week, he'll now get to put $10 on because he had the insurance, so he's got an extra $5 bet on there. Zach, I believe you actually did the same thing because you placed a NASCAR bet as well. What was yours on?
It was a top 5 winner as well. I gotta say, like you guys were saying, when it's a sport you don't really care about or know too much about, you don't watch it. So I don't know if my guy made it.
He did not. Yes. I checked them before we started. Yeah, like I said, normally these bets won't have been resolved when we're recording, but In this case, we just had some weird things happen, so they all were. But so it looks like the score now: Marshall's 0-3, Zach is 0-2 with 1 futures pending, and I am 1-2. So don't listen to us at the moment. We haven't been doing too hot.
I mean, just wait until some actual sports comes back. Is all I have to say.
When the big four come back and we actually know what we're talking about, then you can listen to us. But right now, when I'm betting on soccer and they're betting on racing, hey, maybe don't take our advice too seriously.
Bro, the EPL is sick.
Yeah, Karim would probably be a better.
It is sick, and I don't know what I'm talking about. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and transition into our next segment. So we're doing deep dives today on the Nuggets and the Canes. Which team do you guys want to talk first? The Nuggets or the Hurricanes?
I'm feeling the Nuggets, but I guess you guys can vote as well.
Let's talk some
I'm
Nuggets.
with the Nuggies.
I'm down with the Nuggets. Really quick, we're gonna kind of go down and do a dive on whether or not these teams are pretenders or contenders in our eyes, and that's kind of what we're doing the deep dive on. We'll kind of go through some stats and figure out some standing and situations, and just go from there. But yeah, let's start with the Nuggets.
Yeah, definitely. And then one thing I wanted to mention before we get started. So we're going to try and be a little bit upfront about, this is a fan podcast, so we aren't all experts on every sport. I'm going to be honest with you right now. I don't know that much about basketball. The Nuggets are the one team I follow a little bit, so I have a little bit of information on them. But I'm really going to be leaning on Marshall, Zach, and Karim here to talk, to spew their Nuggets knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Nuggets are a very interesting team for me to analyze going into the postseason. They were dealing with a bunch of injuries before the season got postponed. But now that the season is looking like it might resume, although we can go into different discussions about whether or not it will, because some players are saying that they're not wanting to participate. Either way, we haven't heard anything about them come out with the Nuggets like that. As far as I know, I think the Nuggets are pretty committed. I know Mike Malone is very committed on actually winning a championship.
I think the big three, they're all Jokic, Murray, and Malone are all saying they're hungry. This is the year. They want to do it. Yeah.
I mean, I know we've touched on this in the past, but Jokic has absolutely transformed himself.
He's sexy, bro. He's sexy.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest
really
X factors in the NBA playoffs is what is Jokic going to look like.
Yeah.
Because if he takes just another step, then it could be dangerous.
Yeah.
I mean, just look how good he was before when he was pretty freaking fat. Like, no disrespect to my man, but...
I mean, I'm sure he's way more athletic or just in shape than we'll ever be. But,
I mean, especially now, though.
Oh, dude, that's what I'm saying. Just like Game 3 against Portland in the semis last year. Wasn't it Game 3?
It was the Western Conference semis.
Yeah. Was it Game 3? Whatever game. How many minutes did he play?
Dude, like 50. He played like 50, but that was the game that went into like triple OT.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Dude, and he played the entire game. And he was still, just imagine now, he's more in shape. He can run up the court quicker. He can be on that slide defense quicker. I mean, literally his main fault endurance is just he cannot slide. He's a kind of lackluster defender. I mean, now he's just more athletic. He can just hop in there, man.
Yeah.
His endurance did get to him a little bit last year. In that last series, he fouled out a couple times, I believe.
Yeah.
Just because it looked like he had just gotten worn down from playing so much. So if this weight loss gives him that extra little bit of endurance, it could take him to the next level in that regard as well. One question I wanted to ask you guys is MPJ, Michael Porter Jr., do you think he's in the starting 5 now? Do you think he will be in the playoffs?
No.
No.
Dude's going to play 1 minute, maybe.
No, I would not say that. I do think that he plays a little bit bigger of a role than we might expect.
Really?
But no. Yeah, dude. I mean, he's healthy. He's
it's
as
Malone,
healthy as
though. It's Malone.
That is very true. Karim brings up a good point.
Malone doesn't like to play him.
But still, MPJ is very talented, and if we're looking at...
Oh, I know. Yeah.
If we're looking at, a do-or-die situation with the NBA playoffs coming back, I kind of see Malone's going to put his best players on the court. If Barton's not performing to his standards, then he's going to give MPJ a shot. And if MPJ can prove in a couple of games that he's worth keeping on the floor, I think Malone is going to give him that shot.
That's where I disagree with you. But does someone else want to contribute to that before I shit on Malone?
Yeah, I mean, I like to think MPJ is going to be that player that's going to start one day. But yeah, right now I don't think he's that guy. You still got players way ahead of him in the depth chart. You got Gary Harris. You got Will Barton, like Marshall said. I don't even. Yeah. Go ahead. Torrey Craig.
Mean, I like to think. Yeah, I like to think that he might have a shot, just because this whole thing has basically been an off season. So with young players, a lot of the time you expect a jump from one year into the next, and this is almost like a new year, going from I guess it was second year into his third now, really still his second, but it's almost like stepping into his third year. So I feel like maybe there is a little bit of room there for him to have at least a little bit of a shot, maybe be treated as a little bit less of one of the young guys.
I mean, I think Malone has just always trusted his vets, and I think that showed in the last playoff run where Thrill was always in, and then when he was 2 for 14 against Portland, he was still playing starting minutes. I don't know.
But who was like behind Thrill though that has the talent like MPJ at that time?
I mean, Torrey, man. I feel like
Torrey does not have the upside like MPJ or the scoring potential or anything.
I agree. I agree 100%. Yeah.
And MPJ's upside is the reason that he fell a lot further in the draft than I thought he was going to. But MPJ was coming out of his high school year as the pretty much
one,
the consensus number one overall draft pick. And because of the fact that he was injured is the reason he only played 4 games at Missouri. And because of the fact that he was injured his entire Missouri year is why he fell to the Nuggets at 14. He sat out his entire rookie season, played very minuscule minutes for the Nuggets, definitely did start earning some of Malone's trust before he got injured again. And like Billy was saying, this is kind of like a mini offseason for the boys. And
I mean, I'm hopeful, man. I want him to play. I think he can turn it on. I think he does turn it on every time he touches the court. He puts it on. I don't have much faith in Malone sometimes.
I got a question for you guys about MPJ, actually. If you had to pick a player of a ceiling comparison for MPJ, what would you say?
KD, man.
Yeah.
Hey, whoa!
No, absolutely.
I think he absolutely has the potential.
Dude,
to
he's
be
so
on the
tall.
Nuggets, even.
He has that jump shot.
I'm not saying he will be, but he might be.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a high ceiling.
If we're talking about ceiling, yes, MPJ is Kevin Durant.
Sky's the
maybe
limit
a
for
Kevin
this
Durant
dude.
light. Okay, well, I think maybe we're being a little bit like optimistic about
Nugget
KD.
fanboys. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's the ceiling. You can be optimistic. That's the point of the ceiling.
But dude, there's a reason that he was the number 1 overall recruit
over
coming out of
Trae
his high
Young.
school year.
Yeah. I mean, Trae Young's killing it, and he was consensus over Trae Young.
Yeah, and Doncic and Ayton and all these guys.
Yeah. I mean, fuck it. I think MPJ and Trae Young played against each other.
Yeah.
I mean, dude was killing it. He had something set up for himself. I think he can still do it though.
Yeah, I think so too. He's still a very young guy.
Definitely. I think there's a perception kind of around the NBA that the Nuggets are about 1 star away from being a real championship caliber team, and I think MPJ absolutely has the potential to be that star.
I'm 100% on board with that. And another guy that kind of gets swept under the rug a little bit is Bull.
Bull, I'm excited. I'm excited for this dude, man.
It's kind of another MPJ situation. With the Nuggets draft picks the last 2 years, with who they've picked with their selections, I mean, kind of got me jumping out of my seat, if we're being honest. When I saw MPJ, I mean, even draft day, it was pretty apparent that MPJ was going to go top 10, 8 or 7.
Right.
But then I wasn't able to watch the draft. But when I saw the headlines that MPJ fell to us, I probably about ran around the house a few times. But
Yeah, I love the big swings the Nuggets have been taking with MPJ and Bol Bol. It's like in in Denver, for whatever reason, a lot of NBA players don't view Denver as a great free agent location. They don't want to live in Colorado, which is different, honestly, from a lot of sports. But because of that, as the Nuggets, you have to take those big swings, and you have to say, well, we're not going to bring in stars in free agency. We got to do it through the draft. So I love the swings that they're taking to try and find these stars in some somewhat unconventional ways. Jokic in the second round, one of the biggest steals.
Okay,
Yep.
that
Really.
being said, man, I mean, we blew it with the
Long time.
Donovan Mitchell.
yeah,
we take swings and we take hella misses. You can't say we've been.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the double-edged sword there. When you take the swing, sometimes it doesn't work.
To be honest, one of my least favorite moves that the Nuggets have made in the last few years is trading away Malik Beasley. I always thought that kid could be way better than Gary Harris. That's just my personal opinion.
I
But
agree.
once he arrived on the Timberwolves and was given some more
starting minutes. Oh yeah,
dude, he's been absolutely
he's
electric.
insane, dude. I feel
painful to see a player you like go to another team and then turn into the player you always thought they could be.
this is my problem with Malone. Is Harris has been blowing it this entire season.
Exactly, and he's been injured. He's so injury prone, man.
Dude, how do you not just start Malik? Why don't you give him like, hey, I trust you, take the wheels, man. Harris isn't doing it. I know he's on a big contract, but why are you paying? Like, you're paying this dude regardless. Why don't you just want to give someone else the chance to prove themselves? I don't know. That's my qualms with Malone, and it's probably upper management as well. But like, we have such crappy contracts on our team, which is the only real concern I have. You got Jokic, you got Murray, you got these young studs coming in, but then you also got Barton on a contract, and you got Plumlee on a crappy contract, and you got
but Plumlee
Harris
is
on
expiring here soon.
yeah. I mean, Harris is awful contract. Not awful. Okay, I mean he was producing, but
He's just so
Yeah,
injury
definitely.
prone, man.
All right, so I want to get you guys final takes here. Denver Nuggets, contender or pretender? Zach, what do you think? We'll start with you.
I think this year, especially in the West, I gotta say, and it hurts me to say, the Nuggets are pretenders. I think you're right, Billy. They need that one more big star to emerge. I don't think MPJ is there. For right now, they are pretenders, but I would watch out for them in the future for sure. This could be another dynasty in the making.
I'm on the same page as you, Zach. I think that they're pretenders this year. I think maybe they make the Western Conference Final, but I think that's about what their ceiling is this year. Bright future, but like I said, one star away. What do you think, Marshall?
I'm definitely going pretender. Sorry, Nuggets Nation. I love the team that we've established so far, but we are still very young. In my eyes, I see that there's 3 contenders in the league. I won't necessarily go into that until we talk about those specific teams, but the Nuggets just fell short of that. Karim might have a different opinion, though, here.
Yeah.
I
What do you
think
Greg?
I think we can contend because we do contend on a nightly basis, and all these top 3 picks that I'm assuming that Marshall is thinking about as a contender, we've played really well against them, even though we have blown games against. But I mean, we'll go to LA and we'll put up 20 over LA in LA. I mean, we can play. It's just Jokic is doing so much. You just need Murray to step up when he's slacking off.
Yeah.
And Barton's taking every shot. No matter, he's not even looking at the the rim. He's just shooting shots.
Yeah,
That's where we shoot ourselves in the foot. But I feel like we can do it. It's just I think Jokic can do it. I think Murray can do it.
that's a huge piece. Is we didn't even touch on Jamal Murray. If Jamal Murray can get going and figure out his true potential, in these playoffs, and I mean, look out for the Nuggets, especially that we don't necessarily know how Jokic is going to look with his new physique. So,
Yeah.
but I'm still sticking by. I think they're pretenders. There's just a couple of teams out west that
I don't know,
LA
man. They
teams.
said they're ready. They said they're ready.
they did
I
say
believe
they're
them.
ready, but
I
They
believe
said
them.
that, but what were they going to say? We're not ready?
yeah.
We'll see, man. We'll see. I have faith. I have faith in my dude.
I mean, I will
Fair
be
enough. I mean, there's reason to
enthusiastic,
believe
but-
in the Nuggets. I want them to win.
Yeah.
I'd love to see them win. I think we got to wait a year before we can really see a true contender in Denver. But we're going to go ahead and make the transition here to the NHL. And a team in the playoffs. This team is 6th seed, so a little bit lower maybe in the standings, but I'm really high on the Canes. I just want to get you guys' initial thoughts. What do you think of the Hurricanes? Zach, let's start with you.
They're obviously a super talented team. Yeah, I could just go down the list and name people, but if I had to go in and say an X factor on this team right away, I'm looking at Vinny Trocheck. I'm looking at Andrei Svechnikov. I'm looking at even players like Ryan Dzingel. Maybe he steps up and plays well after his bad times in Ottawa.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Marshall, initial impressions of the Hurricanes?
So Billy, for people that have not watched our Avs pod, definitely go check that out. You kind of swayed me a little bit with your explanation about the Canes last night. I do think that they have one of the deepest decors, if not the deepest decor in the entire NHL.
Mm-hmm.
Especially getting back Dougie Hamilton and Jacob Slavin, both Norris quality defenders.
Yeah, both of them
mean-
could have been contenders before Hamilton got hurt. And really, Carlson is probably going to get the award. But both of these guys, before Hamilton got hurt, were in that conversation.
Yeah, I mean, dude, this is a roster that just oozes talent, and I know Billy would like to touch on it a little bit more, but they did make some moves at the deadline that is going to be interesting to watch in the future here.
Yeah, definitely. Let's see, Karim, what are your initial impressions, and then we'll get into the deadline moves they made.
I mean, like I think everyone said, I think they have the team to do it. They're so deep. You got Aho, you got Turbo, you got Slavin. I'm high on Slavin. They can do it. If things just gotta fall, they need to get the right matchups. Obviously, I mean, if you're coming up against, I don't know,
Boston or Tampa or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Billy, take it away, man. What are your thoughts?
All right. So, the Hurricanes are my second favorite team in the NHL. I absolutely love watching them. And they are a 6th seed. But this is probably the most talented 6th seed I've seen in recent memory just because of what they did at the deadline. They're, more than any other team in the NHL, this is a different team than they were 5 months ago. 3 major moves that they made at the deadline. They had Dougie Hamilton injured. So, to make up for that, they wanted to bring in some defensemen. They sent a first-round pick. It's got a condition on it, so it's either Toronto's first-round pick or their own, to the Rangers for Brady Shea, who was expected to kind of take that top-pairing role that in Hamilton's absence. So now they got Hamilton back, and they've got Brady Shea on the second pairing. They also went out and traded for Sami Vatanen. They sent a third-round pick and a couple of prospects to New Jersey to bring him in. So now they've got, just running down this decor, Dougie Hamilton, Jacob Slavin. The way I projected it, I have Jake Gardner, the free agent signing, on their second pairing with Brady Shea, and then Sami Vatanen and Joel Edmondson as a third pairing. They also have Brett Pesce, who is injured. He'll probably miss the Rangers series, but very well could jump in later on. And they're also scratching Hayden Fleury, who is absolutely a talented NHL defenseman, and Trevor Van Riemsdyk, an NHL defenseman. So even if they do start taking some injuries, they still have the depth to be one of the best decors in the league. On offense, they brought in Vinny Trocheck. They gave up Eric Haula to do that. And then Lucas Wallmark, who was a nice prospect for them, but I think the emergence of Morgan Geekie makes up for that completely. So they have absolutely, almost completely changed up this roster versus where they were at the trade deadline. Of the 3, what do you think the biggest deadline move that they made was?
I guess I'll start here, and I'm definitely going Vincent Trocheck. He hasn't I mean, 7 games, 2 points, but still, he's a very talented center. Um, he just gives the Canes that much more depth. They'll just continue to hit their opponents with 1 through 4 depth. And just a very nice compliment behind their super solid front or top line. So
Yeah, for me, I guess the biggest additions to me are on the back end. When you can add players that usually play in your top four, and now they're in your bottom six. It's like, what the hell? Okay, these players can like move the puck up the ice all day. They make smart defensive plays. There's just no stopping these guys if they catch fire. Um, I mean, like Hayden Fleury is scratched. Yeah, that's insane. I kind of didn't realize how fucking crazy this roster is on the back end until right now.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
depth
that-
is insane.
Like
they're
Sammy Vatanen written off in Anaheim comes in here and just totally bolsters this roster. It's insane.
I'm not as big as on Sim Vatanen as you guys might be.
He's a beast.
I'm not like massive on him, but as a third pairing defenseman, I think that's like
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
as good as you can get as a third pairing defenseman.
One thing that Zach already touched on is I love Andrei Svechnikov.
Mm-hmm.
I think that he will be a top 5 player in the NHL in the next coming years. One of my favorite
five?
players. Yes, I'm that high
I
on
think he could
Svechnikov.
be absolutely. He's a very talented.
Yeah, I mean, dude, when he was drafted, he was compared to like be the next Evgeny Malkin, and so far, I don't necessarily think that he's digressed from that.
Right, he's not that
Set
far
the
off.
NHL on fire with his Michigans, and if you call it a lacrosse style goal, we can't be friends.
Yeah,
It's a Michigan.
He totally-
or you can
he
even call it a Svechnikov.
Exactly.
Do not
He
call it
renamed the
lacrosse
move.
goal.
He totally renamed the move.
Yeah. He did, and like all kinds of people, like Philip Forsberg, even got in on it. Just an
Yeah.
electrifying player. We touched on it with MPJ when we were talking about the Nuggets. Young players like this in the off season, a lot of the time you see them take a big step in the next year. So the Svechnikov, another guy in that same vein, getting an off season, does he take that kind of this is a new season kind of step and even elevate the Hurricanes that much more? Another similar guy, Marty Necas, very solid year as a rookie on the second line. Does he become even a little bit more? Become a very, very strong player for them on the second line, Adam? Get even more secondary scoring for them.
Yeah, I would agree. One more thing I'd like to touch on is it's kind of crazy that they got rid of Justin Falk last season and still have managed to put together one of the best defensive cores in the NHL.
Right? They're captain, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, their captain, dude.
Just trade him away.
Just let him go.
Billy, I'd like to ask you
Yeah.
a question really quick. What do you think about their goalie situation? Because that's one part that I'm not totally sold on.
Yeah. So the nice thing is they have options. The not so nice thing is that none of those options are amazing. Peter Mrazek, I think, will get the start. I think there's, you might find a couple people that say James Reimer, but I really think it'll be Mrazek. I don't think he's bad. He's not an elite goaltender. I honestly put Peter Mrazek right in kind of that same tier as I would put Philip Grubauer. So, as an Avs fan, I don't feel significantly better or worse than I would on like kind of the Avs goaltending situation. They do have Anton Forsberg, one of the better thirds in the league, but if your third goalie's getting in, something has gone horribly wrong. So it's definitely an X factor. Any goalie can turn it on in the playoffs. So you've seen no-name goalies turn it on before and kind of steal games. Hammond for the Avs, the Hamburglar,
Yeah.
stole a game in that Nashville series a couple years ago. Anything can happen, but it's undoubtedly a weak point for this team, and they're going to have to mask it a little bit, which I think that elite D-core will help them with when they run into some teams like Tampa Bay, where they're definitely outclassed at the goaltending position. We'll definitely have to see if someone can step up for them.
Yeah. Another guy you didn't touch on, Billy, was David Ayers. So
Yeah,
I'm
they'll
right.
bring him. They better bring him. Gotta love David Ayers. I love kind of the storylines going with the Hurricanes. You know, the bunch of jerks last year, and now this
Storm
year they brought in
surge.
David Ayers, and just one of the most, just I don't know, lovable guys just for the moment that he had. Like, the dream is to jump into an
man.
NHL game and pull something like that off, and you gotta love like David Ayers also
Toronto.
just seems like the nicest guy.
yeah, that's a great story. I love that.
Yeah, Karim, what were you saying there?
Oh man, Toronto's my Eastern team, and I can't. When that happened, I was literally jaw on the floor. You got
Just
the
like-
sickest trio besides the Avs trio, and you can't put more than like what? How many shots did he get? Like
Dude,
six shots.
They
Yeah, and they scored right off the bat, and we're like, ooh, this might get ugly. And then just from there on, like, for whatever
Dude,
reason, they didn't shoot a lot, and when they did, Ayers had the answer.
Yep.
Fucking Babs.
All right, boys. Should we run through and contender pretender status here?
Yeah. All right, let's start with, let's go same
Let's
order,
go-
Zach.
let's
What
start
do
with
think?
you.
Contender or pretender?
Okay.
Even though they're a 6 seed, I got to go contender. Seeing this defense just really brought me super high on the Canes. To
Yeah.
me, defense is a really big factor in if you win a championship. And they have the top 6 to contend with anybody in the league. Definitely, I'm going to say it, the best top 6 in the league easily. So
Whoa.
agree.
I think they could go.
As far as the depth,
Whoa.
I don't know who else is even up there.
I don't either.
Whoa. Oh, in
Marshall?
in terms of the defense.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about forwards.
Oh, no.
Oh no.
I was gonna rattle off a couple of teams there, but still, their forwards are very solid. But yeah, I
I
would
think
agree
one
with
of the
that.
top 5-ish first lines in hockey as well. Marshall, contender or pretender?
I'm also gonna go with contender. A lot of people forget that they made the Eastern Conference Finals last year.
Mm-hmm.
Did they? I thought.
Yeah.
Oh,
it
did they
was-
beat the Capitals? Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, they're
Yeah,
Eastern Conference
so-
Finals.
You know, a team that knows how to play in the playoffs a little bit.
Another year of experience for all the boys. They upgraded their roster significantly after, last season. Yeah, I'm gonna definitely go contender contender with the Hurricanes here.
All right, and Karim, contender or pretender?
I think
It looks like we may
that.
have lost Karim. Oh,
No,
there he
no,
is.
no. Sorry, you just cut out on my end. Just the
Same.
impeccable timing. Okay, so I think they're definitely going to contend. I mean, especially in hockey where I'm not going to say it's like more luck driven, but just statistically
It is,
speaking,
though.
you don't need to have
Well, and
yeah.
I think you can say that. It absolutely is more luck driven.
Yeah.
I mean more luck driven, but like I'm not trying to say that like Carolina doesn't have the skill to compete. I'm just saying like I think they can definitely do it. Just like even if they didn't make those last minute signings, they didn't make those signings at the deadline. I think they still could have contended. Obviously, just because they contended last year and they kept most of that same core, other than their captain leaving. But I mean,
Yeah.
they're gonna contend, man. I think it's the pairing that's gonna get them if they get caught. I think if you put them against Tampa and Mrazek's not having a good time, obviously Tampa's gonna shoot lights out, guaranteed.
Yeah.
I can only imagine what Tampa's gonna look like
Yeah.
after this. But man,
Really quick to. Sorry, Cram.
No,
Go
you're
ahead.
good, man. That was my point.
I was just gonna say really quick to touch on the whole skill based, analysis in hockey. It's not necessarily like hockey players are less skilled than any other sport. It's just that the game of hockey relies more on luck than skill in the outcome of their games.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Hockey
get a lucky
players
bounce
are
can
as skilled as
change the
basketball
entire game.
players, but-
Yeah.
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 I think we
And
know what Billy's going with
I'll
here.
go ahead and say, yeah. So I'm gonna say it. They're a contender. I think they have a legitimate shot to win the East, and they could win the Cup. I think Karim said it best. In hockey, anything can happen more so than in basketball. Like, Marshall said he thinks there are really 3 true contenders in the NBA, and that's fair because in the NBA, the more skilled team wins most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And in the NHL, while the more skilled teams win more often than not, there's a lot more variance and anything can happen. So I think that the Hurricanes, not only are they, in my opinion, I think they're the 3rd best team in the East. And I know that's a little bit bold. I even put them slightly ahead of the Capitals. I think those are the 2. I'd put Tampa and Boston at the top. But there's so much talent there. They're better than your average 6 seed, and even as a 6 seed, 6 seeds win the cup. It's not it's not an unheard of thing. So absolutely, I think that they're a contender.
8 seeds win the cup.
Yeah, I mean, like you don't even have to go that far back. The LA Kings a few years ago.
Yep.
All right, so I think we had some good discussions here today. But any last things you guys want to touch on before we close this episode out?
Not from me, boys.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling good about that one.
All right.
It's a wrap.
So, yep, let's close her out here. Thank you everybody for listening in. You can find us if you're listening to this on YouTube. Definitely check us out on iTunes and Spotify as well. Check out our Patreon. We mentioned it at the front of the episode here. Patreon.com/off_brand, or you can just click the link in the description. That's always easy. And we're going to go ahead and see you guys next week.